There we go. Oh, and I am muted in this Discord call. There we go. Okay, now everything is working fine. Yeah, hope everyone is doing well today, friendos. We got a little bit to talk about today. Also, ignore the white cable. That's my headphones. But anyways, we're here to talk about Rosemont as a whole. Which honestly, I'm gonna talk about this as best as I can. I'm not sure how to do event coverage out to just like my own personal reports and all that, which I do have my phone with my tournament stuff on there. But yeah, I played both days, standard and premium. I had a better day one than I did day two, which to be fair, I also prepared more for standard than I did for premium. And that was just because I felt better, I guess, playing Odium in a format that felt very centralized, compared to playing what was a bad pick, admittedly, in Regalia in a format I was not familiar with how it was going to look, especially because we had the ban list come out, well, announced before the event, but it wasn't going to take place until after the event, so like, oh, how are people going to approach this? But yeah, I mean, overall, I feel this was a fun event. Overall, staff was great. Player count was actually a lot higher than I anticipated, because I have never heard of Rosemont reaching cap before, but we reached cap on both events. Standard, they actually turned people away, which I've never heard of them doing that before. And then premium was close, but some people did drop out, and then we got to slip other people in, which granted also some people just only sign up for premium just for the promo or the entry promo. Regardless, I felt that the event was overall ran very smoothly. The staff does a great job as always. We were in and out pretty much so early on in the day. Tournament started at around 10. Then we were done by 3-ish, maybe 4 in the afternoon. But again, that's very quick for how much the rounds were supposed to be. But yeah, to kind of go over it, I guess, for my picks, we're going to kind of divide this stream into halves, I guess, or I guess thirds. We're going to go over the standard stuff, then the premium side of the game, and then we'll kind of go over the news that happened this morning, which I'm not usually a big, oh, I want to talk about the news and stuff, but I figured, hey, it makes sense to talk about it. So I chose overall for standard to play Odium, as you can see right here. And the big reason I chose this was not because I necessarily feel like it's the best deck, even though I feel like it's an incredibly strong deck. But one, I feel like this deck is incredibly simple to play, which is a big boon, I feel, in really long stay tournaments. Which, again, I figured that standard was going to have a very high cap. So I wanted something that was easy to play, but also because at the time I was really worried about money, and I sold off a bunch of my cyclers, which are my energy cyclers, gun cyclers for various nations, so... And thankfully, Odium doesn't really need a lot of those staples in specific. Obviously, I think Tiz card is really good in this deck, but it's not a necessary card. Neither is Luvidia. But let's go ahead and go over the deck itself. I will say I ended X3 with this deck. My first round was a double loss. I lost round 2 after that, and then I lost round 6. So that was very unfortunate. 7 rounds both days, but I did not play all 7 rounds in both days. But I did for standard at the very least, and we'll kind of talk about that. There were some other slight external factors that led to me not playing all of day 2. But to go over the ride deck, basically our 7-card ride deck, Odium has a very strict ride deck in terms of how it works. Any starter of your choice, Tagal, Life, Cessation, Colossus, then Odium herself. When you ride the Tagal, you reveal the Odium, and then you get a time or a Dustin timepiece. This is the win condition of your deck, basically. You hit 5 regress gauge, which this is the card that allows you to have regress gauge. You get to fire for your divine skill, and then you just skip your opponent's turn. You basically just play for the turn skip. And then, of course, I also joined this as a 7-card red deck because the energy generator. Also, thanks Megami for actually being my energy tracker, because I learned that I hate dealing with energy cards, and I prefer the little kit picture method. I think it's much easier. So I apologize, Bushy, but you guys convinced me not to run stupid energy cards. But yeah, I think this ride deck is very strong, especially Life Cessation Colossus. This card is insane. And I overall just like the deck. Odium's Divine Skill is really good. Even if you don't see Persona Rides, it's not that bad. But obviously, you want to see Persona Rides. And you probably will, considering how much you filter through the deck. Yeah, that's it for the Ride deck. Like I said, jokingly 7 cards. And then as for the rest of the deck, it was 3 more copies of Odium, along with 4 copies of Distorted Bane. And then our other grade 3 in Anchronos Dragon. This is about all you really need in terms of, like, I want to say the direct support, because I don't think there's, like, well, actually, no, there's one other card, I would say, like, in terms of direct support that you do realistically want, but this is about all you, like, need for the deck. Odium gives you more Persona Ride copies, which obviously, if you can run more Persona Rides, you run more Persona Rides, because that's a really strong mechanic. Distorted Bane is probably one of the best normal orders I've read in a very long time in this game. Just Soul Charge 1, draw 1, give your Vanguard 10k. There are times where I would choose not to just, or like put this like in the drop, and then the next turn on my turn skip, I would then Regus gauge it, or like swing with Van, then gauge it from hand, and then just be like, alright, I have multiple in hand. I rarely ever missed the ability to get to the 4 and or to the 5 gauge and then Divine Skill my opponent. That only happened once the entire tournament. And then Anchronos, I think, is actually the best use of energy in this entire deck. I feel that if you can just board control your opponent all game, every game, especially against decks like Levy Dress, where it's like, sure, they can keep recurring their pieces, but they have to keep committing cards from hand to recur their pieces, compared to just ignoring them, letting them build hand, and then they can just kind of do whatever they want. I think this card is probably the best card in the deck, realistically. I would say this is the reason why you play this deck, realistically. That and obviously the Divine Skill being so nuts, but yeah. And then, I know I said that I couldn't afford Gun Cyclist, but I only had Orions at 4 copies just because I bought these for like $2 when they came out, because nobody was looking at this card at all for anything, aside from maybe Premium Spike Bros. I also realized that before the tournament, I totally had been misplaying with this card. I did not realize it's forced to call the card you add. I thought it just added a card to your hand, but then you only get to add it if it's a normal order. So don't be like me. I would still play probably at least 3. I feel like you could cut 1, but there really wasn't much of anything I wanted to play in the slot instead. And then one of my other favorite cards being the Almanac Colossus. Almanac is so good. It's just kind of us 1, draw 1, Soul Charge 1. You do like Soul in this deck. You don't burn through Soul incredibly hard, but also it's just a 10k on call. That's really good. It's a booster, so if you need to shove this behind Odium, it's a 10k consistently throughout the rest of the game, and you have it on board. So it's really good. If you have Anchronos, that's a 28 column without Persona Ride. That's also something no Distorted Banes, which obviously you're going to have Distorted Banes. And then the card that was technically a last minute addition, and that was 2 copies of Datana. I am indifferent towards this card on a realistic basis with you. I don't love this card. I don't hate this card. I saw it early game 1 time, and it was just okay. It didn't. The number difference from it, giving my stuff 5k, really didn't turn up a whole lot. Not that it was bad, and like I think the one time it did turn up, like it did win me the game because I was against Magnolia Elder, and that I did not realize how good that deck actually is with the hostage package. Considering you can turn in Largolf into a big intercept, and that's like, wait, that's 15k shield. So I feel like overall this is okay. If I was to play a Cycler, I actually would not play this card. I'd play the other one, the Soul Blast 1 Cycler. I think that card's just better to give you board. Or I would play the, not a Cycler, but the Dragon Empire Dark States Duo Nation card that calls from Soul. I think that card's also really good. And then my other grade 2, which not in unit but in order, was Twin Cast. Twin Cast is really good. I almost never needed to use this. This card was just fantastic though. I like this card a lot. I think Twin Cast is probably the order to play right now if you need a Regulus piece. If you can afford to play a Regulus piece, like as if your deck doesn't like need a specific one. Like if you're not a 4-bit deck, I think you play this card. I think that Twin Cast having the ability just to like recur itself from drop, be easy discard fodder. I think this deck, or this card is just phenomenal. And then as for the ones, obviously the money card right now, an Avarice Rester. I don't get why people just didn't pick these up sooner. Admittedly, like I understand if you can't afford just drop money purely on speculation, but this wasn't. I remember just reading these order grade ones and be like, yeah, these are gonna go up. Like, I think these are some of the most cracked cards in this game in a hot minute. Like, they're gonna be good in like every format that they're gonna be good in. Like, it's the effect of like wanting to say like, hey, Foolish Burial Goods, we can activate the spell from grave. You know, like there's no reason not to be playing that yourself. And then 3 Arlim with 1 Elementaria. And then kind of the concession, this is where the Tanas came in. I was originally playing 4 copies of Gungram, but I swapped out 2 copies for the 2 Tana. Big thanks to Tommy, by the way, for letting me borrow the Gungrams. I was having to borrow mine because a store that I kept buying them for TCG players never sent them. So, and I'm still waiting on a refund from them. And then 2 Visargo. Honestly, Visargo is probably the worst card in my deck, and Gungram was one of the better cards in my deck. I actually would just use this either early game as like a beater, like hey, free soul charge, or I could just later in the game soul blast to redraw 1. And I rarely had issues like drawing the cards I needed. I think this was a really good card overall. And I'm most excited for the new Grade 2 Colossus, which basically is Gungram. So I feel overall the 1 lineup was pretty solid. Again, I would probably cut Visargo, even though Visargo could have won me the round that I lost for round 6 that I could have potentially controlled, but just didn't have any say over it. And then triggers was Red OT, just because Red OT is the one that gives you the extra attack. It's huge pressure, and Kronos can retire a little bit more. And then 8 crit. To answer the question also, would I play the Stem Deviate or Vanilla crits? Realistically, it should have been Vanilla crits. There was a time, however, like in testing, it did keep coming up a couple times where I was like, hey, this should probably be a Vanilla crit. But then there were also times where I was like, you know what, just the 1 extra soul, or like the fact that like I had an 8 plus the Kronos for 21, I could stop this and make 23. That they both came up a little bit, but realistically, these should probably be the other crits. And then 3 front, because we always swing Vanguard first for the most part. And then 4 Poppy, because heal triggers are really good. And we don't really have a whole lot else to play. Also, I don't own Dark Shades triggers, admittedly. But that was pretty much it for the deck list. Obviously, it's the flat, even 50. Overall, I think this deck is really strong. If you need something quote-unquote cheap for a competitive environment, I don't think this deck is really bad right now. And then to kind of go over the matches, because I know some people are going to wonder about that. Round 1, I played against Fennel, which ended in a double loss. However, I missed my Persona Red on my Divine Skill turn. And then if we could have continued the turn we were on, I would have won, because my triple drive was crit, OT, crit. Like, very late into the game, so I know he didn't have hand. Then round 2, also, I should mention I went second against Fennel. I went second a lot day 1. Actually, I guess it was about even, re-looking at it. Round 2, I played against Levy, aka the best deck in the format. That game I went first, but I did lose as he hit a 6 damage heal, and half of my deck being heals, I didn't get to hit the 6 damage heal. So, little unfortunate for me, but it is what it is. Round 3, I put against Rezael. I went second. I won. He just didn't Divine Skill, and I punished him for not Divine Skilling me before I Divine Skilled. So, if he had, he probably could have at least lived a bit longer, but I still think I had game, realistically. Round 4 was against Magnolia, where I went second, and I won. This game was very close, actually. I hit a lot of defenses, which did matter against his numbers, and I actually won with 1 card in deck. So, you know, we were chucking cards at each other. It was actually probably the closest game I had the entire day. Round 5, I played against Levy Dress as well. I went first. I won. I drew a good chunk of triggers, and I was damage denied. But on my Divine turn, I hit double crit. So, you know, can't really do a whole lot around that. And then round 6, I played against Alma Jester. I went first, and I lost because I had no hand going into my Divine Skill turn, and my Divine Skill was a turn late. I literally remember my board on that turn, as sad as this is going to look, was literally just this. And I only had, obviously I had more gauge, but I had 2 Distorted Banes, and like nothing really good to pop into gauge. So this is my board on my kill turn in that game. Also, I'm pretty sure if I remember right, I missed Persona right that turn too, so it just was not there for me in that game. I wasn't meant to win. Also, the Chimera that gives itself a crit is pretty good. I do have to admit that. That card is kind of strong. And then round 7, I went first against Varga and beat Varga, which that was just the most basic Vanguard game I've played in a hot minute. But there was like very little to it. We just kept smacking each other. So yeah, I was 171 with an X3 record, realistically. I probably wasn't going to get into top 32 even if I did beat the Almagister player, considering a double loss round 1 and then a loss round 2. I don't think it's really going to help me a whole lot. I am curious, though, thinking about it, actually. Yeah, it looks like my opponent, or my round 2 opponent who beat me, did not also make it in top 32, so technically wasn't a good tiebreaker, so yeah, I probably wasn't making it regardless. But overall, I feel that Odium was a very fun deck to play, realistically. I had a great time playing this. And then we can kind of talk about what Standard ended up actually looking like. Yeah, big things also to Fuzzy for actually being out there, as I didn't realize that. I wish I could have said hi, but oh well. But yeah, Fuzzy compiled the data from top 32 at Rosemont, which I also the premium one, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, Rosemont overall, for the top 32, there were 10 Livy Dress, 8 Raziel, 1 Odium, 4 Glemma, aka Bat, 2 Varga, a Shiranui, and Equilibria. There should have also been a Chris Rain apparently in top 32. However, he did get a loss for a sleeve issue in his top cut, and he was not allowed to replace the sleeve, at least from what I was understanding of it. I have not heard the full story, but supposedly there should have been 1 Chris Rain in here somewhere. I don't know where 33rd snuck in, but regardless. And then it kind of broke down a little bit more as we expected. Levy, Raziel, 2 Odium, 2 Bat, Shiranui, and Equilibria. Top 4, or top 8, obviously the Rogue deck kind of got knocked out. Half Levy, Shiranui, Bat, Raziel, Odium. And then no Raziel in top 4. Just the one that got knocked out in the first half. No Shiranuis either. I think it's a little surprising. Anything in this format's overall realistically in an okay-ish state. Arguably, we need to hit Levy at least a little bit. I don't want to say like, oh, we have to neuter this deck, but it is a little scary like when you have a deck that's as strong as it is, and like it's just best deck or format, no questions asked. I feel like this is I don't know. I still kind of think Raziel is a little bit of a better deck realistically, but just because like it's, I don't want to say it's less piece reliant because every top deck in some way or another feels like it's very piece reliant, but Raziel has a lot more tutorability with its pieces compared to Levy, and Levy like has to see pieces on top of names, so there's that. Odium just has to see its order, which you effectively play 8 copies of. You have ways to thin your deck as well, so I don't feel like Odium is in a bad spot, but I understand why people are not as fond of this. And then obviously Bat is the high roll deck of the format. I feel like if any deck really needs to get hit, it probably should be Bat, just because Bat kind of creates not as fun environments. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the Standard at the moment. I feel like the format's admittedly fun. I do like how, I don't want to say like I think the centralized formats are good, because I don't think they're necessarily the healthiest for the game, and this probably will constitute some banlist hits, as people have been saying. Like Levy needs to get hit. Obviously, we can talk about how the last banlist didn't do a whole lot between just hitting Shoujo Doji, which didn't even top anyways, as we can clearly see. There were 0 Shoujo Dojis in top 32, and this deck wasn't even hit yet. So this deck was kind of already on its way out. And Shiranui, the hit didn't really matter, as apparently Sekai is better than Furai right now anyways, so you kind of done goof bushy on that front. But it is what it is. Hopefully we can see some more aggressive hits in the future for Standard and all that. But yeah, I think the format's not the worst. It's not the best, but again, not the worst. I had fun with this format. I actually really enjoyed Standard at this event. Probably the most fun I've had with Standard in a while, admittedly. Despite having a rough 2 rounds, but, you know, it is what it is, and we can get there again. We'll get another top, I promise, at some point, chat.